This video is made possible by our patrons.
Hello everybody and welcome to Metabreakers Road to Worlds Part 2. I'm joined as always by Luke and Fabian.
How are they, guys?
Hello.
And our special guest of today is a man very close to my heart from the Scotland team and an old friend of mine. It's Nathan Watson.
Hello.
So we are going to be today discussing basically some of our favorite meta breakers picks, a little, the less well represented armies from the AoS Sigmar World Championships list for next week. Now we're going to be getting on those airplanes, all of us except Luke, who's probably on a no-fly list somewhere. Before we get into that, Nathan, why don't you tell us just a little bit about who you are and what your AoS sort of shtick is.
So I've been playing AoS since I got points. This is my fourth outing for Team Scotland, first time going to Worlds. I've been playing basically anything that's good. I'm a filthy net lister, not so much a meta breaker, but
getting him on here to change his mind.
Change my ways, that's it.
But Nathan smashes up everything. He's winning all these tournaments in Scotland all the time. It's disgusting. We got Phil in the chat as well. He's probably coming to steal our tactics, the silent assassin that he is. Hey, Phil. And we have got sort of top 10 picks here. So, top 10 picks for Metabreakers list here. So, why don't we just get right into it? So, starting off, we had with Sune, we had a chat on Metabreakers about Sylvaneth in general. So, definitely check that video out on the old YouTubes if you haven't yet. But yeah, we're gonna start off with branching out. Yeah, Luke came up with his name. He's very proud of it. With Quentin from Team Belgium. The list name is Super Friends. I don't entirely know what that is. I guess it's because we've got Alariel and Gotrek in the same list. But yeah, that list here. It's pretty short. It's Alariel, the Arch Revenant, 2x10 Dryads, 5 Tree Revenants, Gotrek, who we used to see a lot of, Tree Lord, and the Spite Swarm Hive, and it's all in a one drop. So it's a reasonably sort of spooky list with the two big smash heroes. Luke, why don't you start us with what you think about this Sylvaneth list?
So it's very similar to the Alariel list we talked at the end of that episode. It's in Winterleaf, so essentially it can just win certain matchups in the first turn if the Tree Lord gets the charge and the whole army's pinned in by their own screen.
Mm-hmm.
But this one probably allows you to play the game not just to try and win turn one, because Gotrek can help you fight your way out of big units you normally can't shift. So yeah, I think it's just very similar to that. It's just like trying to pin you in with the Winterleaf no retreat.
Oops. Wait, I turned my camera off. Sorry, having brief camera issues there. Sorry. Seems to be fixed now. So pinning, and as you say, it's got Gotrek in it who can actually demolish stuff. Fabian, do you have anything Sylvaneth-y related to that?
Gotrek is a bit unusual to see these days, right? Since he was like a force back in the day, I guess.
Yeah.
He was like, he was kind of like everywhere and went a bit mental with his 3-up ward save, but I guess we don't really see it these days. I guess there's a lot more like ignoring ward stuff now these days, isn't there?
That's true.
I guess that's
lift him instantly, basically.
Sorry, buddy. Yeah, go.
I was just gonna say Nathan used to run, or at least one time did run Marathi and Gotrek, which is sort of the doubled can't die cleave. I guess Alariel sort of fits that a little bit. What are your thoughts on Gotrek, basically? Because I think that was a list. I know I complained a lot about it, and then it sort of hit the table and wasn't as it's very obnoxious to play against, but not quite as strong as maybe people thought it was going to be. So, what do you reckon about Gotrek, Nathan?
Yeah, just what's been said. He started off pretty efficient, and then the meta just evolved to the point where he doesn't have the staying power that he used to, and he's quite expensive. So yeah, but I suppose it helps this list fit into one drop, but I don't think it was struggling to be a one drop anyway, right? Like you could just take Dirtho in another unit, but no, I suppose it's very cool. And the Winter Leaf is pretty scary from a Git's point of view.
Yeah.
So yeah, could be good.
I think I definitely found when you play these types of lists that do rely on, you know, pinning things and you have no damage in your list, like with when you used to play Host Duplicitous, Zinch and stuff like this, is one thing that can happen is you're sort of like, you've got somebody pinned, but they're getting through some chip damage, and then it gets to turn 5 or whatever, and everything in their army is still alive, and if they do somehow break free of being pinned, if you haven't killed anything, you know, there can be reasonably big swings in the late game. So maybe, you know, you bring Gotrek in into that list, and now you can at least, you know, you pin what you want to pin, and then you kill something else. It also helps when you pin stuff. Gotrek's quite slow, helps him get in there. So maybe he gets to carve some stuff up that way, and take care of him that way. Alrighty.
Yeah, well, he's still like great into lists that are there, like the Stonehorns. I know there's not that many of them, but anything that has like a lot of high damage, he just reduces everything down to 1. He's still going to cause them problems.
Yeah, and he still does a lot of damage. He still piles in twice, right? Like so.
Yeah.
Yeah, he still slaps. I think a lot of times something can fall just out of the meta, and people think it's gone from like good to terrible, whereas it's just gone from good to not quite good enough. But it's still, you know, it still does stuff, still slaps. Which I guess will be a reasonably recurring theme for this. So if we were thinking about what you're looking at getting Sylvaneth into, if you brought Sylvaneth to Worlds, what sort of stuff? I know we talked about Winterleaf can be good against like Fire Slayers if you're pinning them all in their thing. Anyone else? Anyone afraid? Fabian or Nathan? Afraid of facing Sylvaneth?
Afraid. What's that word mean?
Well, see if we can get one yes out of Fabian for
Well, there's no point asking Fabian because he's just using the best army in the game. So. Yeah, but stuff like big hordes, zombies, all that kind of, like where you got big units, they can cause them major problems. Not being able to retreat,
especially if they don't fly, right? You sort of can get pinned by your own screens. All right, so that's going to be target.
Don't get me wrong. This list is like it slaps for sure. Like, I mean, he's got the battle mage as well. No, he hasn't got battle mage. But you know, +3 to charge. You know, from the trees. It's pretty good, right? So, it can go in and kill surgical pieces. As someone that knows what they're doing on this list is, you know, I'd be sitting there going, okay, you're bringing this list. You must know what you're doing here.
Yeah.
Like, I need to be, rather than being like, oh, this looks like not as good as the other lists. I think it's gonna look for sure.
Yeah, I think.
Or it might just like Lariel. I don't know. Like.
Yeah, I mean, I think you know, it can be easy to look at these Metabreakers lists and be like, they're not as good. They're gonna be trash, but it's good to not fall into that trap. They're still world-class players bringing, you know, lists that they've practiced for the season, so people should still be wary of them. Our next list now is also from Team Belgium. It's actually right next to the list we were just looking at, and it also has a name that I don't entirely understand, of Starship Troopers, but this is the Marathian Bow Snakes. So this used to be, I just caught a little bit of flack for this, actually, for calling it a Metabreakers list, because obviously it used to be
everywhere.
Used to be everywhere. Used to be a very classic, you know, tournament net list staple. But it's sort of fallen off recently. You definitely don't see it as much as you used to. I think people learned a little bit how to play around Marathi, how to get those wounds in, and as well as just more shooting in general, which I think you know, if you can take 3 wounds off Marathi turn 1 before she's had a chance to do anything, that's a bit that makes her a bit weaker. But we'll go through the runs again. So Luke, what do you think about this about the Daughters of Cain list?
I don't really rate the Daughters. The other problem is that he's not even 1-drop, so he's gone sharpshooters in this list. So yeah, I'm not keen on the old daughters anymore. I think it's just the meta's gone so past daughters. I feel.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that goes in his benefit, so nobody's really practiced against it. But I
Sure.
still think everybody knows what it does. So
Yeah, because it's just been
I
around
guess we'll see
forever.
there's a few of the daughters, right?
Yep.
So I guess we'll see how they get on. But I personally don't think they will do very well, just because how dominant they were. I think people still have a good game plan against them.
Fabian, anything to add? I know sharpshooters, sometimes people take sharpshooters specifically versus KO and stuff like that to get rid of those heroes. I don't know if that means maybe we get any fear out of Fabian at all for that. Wait, is Fabian? Yeah.
Oh.
That-
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you. I think you froze for a hot second.
I tried my best to disconnect. Sorry, guys.
You wanted to mess all the names up again, didn't you?
So yeah, I was just saying I don't know if there's anything people do sometimes take sharpshooters to mess with KO. Marathi maybe can tie some stuff up. What would your thoughts be about this Marathi bow snakes in the meta right now? Oh no, I think Fabian's cut out again.
Go to Nathan.
Nathan, you're up.
We've got a delayed Fabian.
We're getting messages through from the future where Fabian's trying to send messages after Worlds has already finished. He's like, I smashed all the dock players. All right, well.
What's interesting about that dock list is it's 5 drops. I think it should be 4, but it says 5, doesn't it? On it?
It does say 5 drops.
It's got 4 heroes, so you can only get 3 in the battle reg.
Oh, I see.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. But I think with this one, the Heartbenders coupled with the Bloodstalkers could lift most sort of GCs with the sharpshooters, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And like I suppose like Doc was always like on the back burner because you've got 8 lists that you can pick. There's the obvious ones that are like really good.
Yeah.
But this one has a lot of really easy battle tactics still, and a very easy grand strategy. So I suppose it's always going to be in consideration when you're picking 8 lists.
Yeah.
And on some missions, it can just score really high. So maybe that's why it's been taken. Yeah.
That's a fair point. Where I think a lot of I think way back when Maratha used to let you get ahead on scoring before she died, right? And now scoring is a lot flatter, so that's maybe a little bit less in her favor. But as you say, if you can get loads of battle tactics even when you're losing and score your grand strategy even when you're losing, that maybe means you can put this Marathi list into whatever bus it wherever you want and expect to still get 10 points out of it, or close to 10 points.
You can score quite high on the 2 battle tactic mission per turn quite quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe targeting specific missions. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, again, right, we talked about this a lot last time. For people watching who don't know about team tournaments in general, there's each matchup is scored from 0 to 20, and your team will get a score based, from 0 to 160. And so if you can sort of say, okay, well, we don't have anybody that wants to play against Caradron Overlords, right? We think all our lists will lose to it. And then you can put something like this Marathi list into it where you're like, well, Marathi can hold them up for a couple turns, and I know I can score my battle tactics and my grand strategy, and I can, instead of getting 20-0'd by KO, I can get, 13-7'd or something like that. Then that's really good in teams. So, I think a lot of these lists, as Nathan says, when you get past those first 5 or 6 lists that are sort of obvious, a lot of that is going to be thinking about denying points rather than necessarily winning games. Big Tom in chat says there are more debuffs in the current meta, and so Marathi isn't the beast that she once was. I know they're not at Worlds, but OBR were running around ruining people's days last weekend. Russ Veal was taking names with
We all just need to run 6 stone ons in our life will be easier.
Perfection. Yeah. So again, I'll just randomly pick someone. I think Fabian. I can see him moving around, so maybe we can hear him again. Fabian, what would you put? If you had to put something? You had to put your doc. You got to pick the matchup for your doc. What do you think you would be trying to get doc into?
I guess it's weird, right? Maybe the Iron Jaws list, maybe from France, maybe something like
Yeah.
that. Like...
Okay. Yeah. Kick down, sort of be like our eighth best list is stronger than your eighth best list. Yeah, that's fair enough.
What did it used to be beat back in the day when it was at its height? Like, what was it smashing all over?
It used to just sort of beat everybody, like back in the day, because like, like 15 Bloodstalkers used to sort of do enough damage. I feel like rally is more of a thing. There's a lot more 4-up, 5-up rallies in the game. It also got book battle tactics before a lot of other armies, I think is correct. So like used to just score a lot of points, and people would be dropping battle tactics obviously, and way back when you used to be able Fire Slayers, you used to be able to tie Fire Slayers up with Marathi and be like, look, similar to the Tree Lord thing. Tree Lords do it better because you can't even hit them.
It was Gargants for a while, right? They could always drop a Gargant a turn.
Yeah.
Lumineth was still quite popular, but a lot weaker than it is right now. And it used to do pretty well against Lumineth.
Yeah. Well, maybe.
Yeah,
I guess anything that doesn't like shooting, right?
Yeah.
It still does a lot of damage, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It still does what it's always done, so it could still do that essentially. The meta's there's a lot more damage in the meta right now, so maybe people dropped off it as well, didn't they? It's when an army gets used a lot, it's kind of just that Gargants eventually. You people want to move on to something else, don't they?
Yeah, especially Gargants. Alrighty. Next up, we have Team Canada, Matthias Cruchel on his Magakin of Nurgle list. Now this is a cool list. This is the demon version of the list with the plague drones, who are the demon plague drones rather than the the ones with Blight Kings on them, whose names I forget.
Plague drones.
Yeah, this is a cool list. I know, Luke, you were talking a lot about it before. I know, Nathan, we sort of slapped it out on TTS. So Nathan, why don't you start us off with what you think about this Nurgle list?
Yeah, I first saw this when I think there was a TTS tournament. One of the French players were playing a similar list, and I tried it out and fell in love with it. I really liked it. It can set quite good early game tempo with some of the battle tactic choices that you've got.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I didn't realize that the plague drones can get deep strike with the Lord of Afflictions. It's not just the mortal ones, so quite a lot of good options. People underestimate plague drones from the games I've been playing with them. They do a lot of damage. Like, they've got a lot of shots if you get them into the right thing with shooting, and then they do a lot of attacks in combat. The disease just like racks up. I played a lot of games with it into like even Slaves to Darkness on 1 and 2 up saves, and it was still dropping Varangard and Chaos Knight. So
yeah, because you just instantly stack all those disease points. Like anything, yeah.
And then you've got the no command ability usage with the overpowering stench. On the Lord of Afflictions, no piling from the Floppy Biopiper. You can summon extra floppies quite easily as well. It's a good list, and I don't think a lot of people play it. It's not very prevalent, so if you've not got experience with it or against it, you could quite easily fall behind if you get caught out. Yeah,
and I think you definitely, with the no command abilities, as you say, and the no pilings, there's just a lot of opportunities to get caught out. Luke, I know you were talking about this list, or a similar list with Plague Drones, where you were saying it's a really good list when you get someone who knows how to play it.
It was just a headache the French brought a couple of teams to TTS tournament, and they brought a list like this. It had more plague drones in, and it had Balakor, but I do think the list is probably better the more plague drones you put in. So back to the spam that everybody loved. But it was a headache in the pairings against this kind of army. Plague drone spam is definitely a thing, and it's probably more of a thing because people just don't see it. They never really see it, so it's definitely going to be one of those kind of lists that just get you on the table. It only has to get you once, but it is a lot better on the table than it is looking at it on paper.
Yeah.
It's still an army that's it's basically Amulet of Destiny. It's all 5 up
Yeah.
board. No piling from the sloppy, but also no piling from the wheel, which can win your games like instantly if you roll that in the right order. Nurgle's still just a very, very good army. We saw it in a massive amount last year at Worlds with the mortal flies, but maybe now they went up in points, people start to realise that plague drones are not far behind them.
Yeah. Well, that's fair enough. Often how these new Metabreakers lists do arise. All right, Luke, if you had to get this list into one, you got to pick this, pick the Nurgle into one enemy list to beat it. What would you be picking?
It can kind of just play. It's weird because it can kind of just play everybody. I think I tried to put it into Gits because if you can do a lot of damage with the amount of shots, if you can get the charge onto Gits, which can be hard, but you have got some screens to counter charge, so you've got your Nurglings and Furies to screen off. If you can tag the Gits with the no piling with its plague drones, they're kind of not doing anything. Yeah.
Similar to the Winterleaf idea. All right.
Yeah, it's a good army just to take away another.
Yeah.
Like the general top 3, maybe take away one of them and still get points out of it.
Yeah.
While the rest of the team get your points where you need it.
I think that's going to be somewhat of a theme with these lists. Is that sort of points denial. Although now moving on to Team Canada's next featured list, which is onto my personal favorite faction of Flesh Eater Courts. This is an interesting one. Maybe harder to deny points on, I don't know. But so yeah, it's Hollowmorn, which is picked because lets you run in charge. Gives you +1 to run in charge, and you can do both in the same turn. It's got the some extra summoning over these lists. It's got the Ghoul King. So we got the Archregent and the Ghoul King. They both, the Archregent can summon anything it wants, basically. Ghoul King summon 10 ghouls. They both give plus attacks from their spells. We've got the Terrorgeist, who still, runs around biting people. And we've got a bunch of courtiers, basically. And what they're there for is to take the 2 blocks of 9 Crypt Horrors and resurrect them. So for people who don't know, you roll a bunch of dice on M5s that, you're bringing back Crypt Horrors. So yeah, I think the idea is that you can send these Crypt Horrors a very long way. And the Terrorgeist can run in charge as well. And you're smashing into things, hopefully doing a lot of damage, and the damage you take back, you're resurrecting. It doesn't have flayers, which I think is one of the things you often see in this list. The list I was running is 9 Crypt Horrors and 9 Crypt Flayers, because the Flayers do more damage, have mortals, because Crypt Horrors, they do really good damage, but they have no rend. So if you're hitting anything that's on a 3-up base save, that just goes up to a 2-up, your damage sort of drops to nothing. But
definitely yours as well, right? Not Stuart's list that have players in.
I did say that the list I've been running, that is actually one of the lists you got to credit to Stu. It was from him. Although he also sent a bunch of other versions of the list that got increasingly worse. So I don't know how many lists you have to write before you can claim credits for the one that work. But no, yeah, I think this is it's a really fun list to play. I think it can catch people out with how fast the things go. Again, the Vargulf as well. It doesn't have Sword of Judgment anymore, but there is that sort of nuclear bat option, where you give him the command ability and he sneaks in with his little base into an important hero, or with the double pile in, and with buffs of plus attacks, and he gets rerolls if anyone casts a spell. He can really do a lot of damage. Terrorgeist still has those mortals where if you get +3, or in this list you can even high roll and get +4 attacks on all of his profiles. Those mortals will still lift just about anything in the game if you're good at rolling 6s, which is, I guess, what you have to.
It's the resin, right? The resin will always surprise you when you see one Crypt Horror go to 9 again.
To 9, and that's like expected from this list. Like if there are any Crypt Horrors left alive, you expect the list to be fully back at 9. And again, so if you're probably looking to get this list into lower, sort of lower damage lists. So in that attrition, you're hoping you can resurrect stuff. Again, this one might struggle a little bit. If you play against something like the Nurgle, they don't have there's I think are the demon flies also a 4-up armor save?
No.
They're not. They're a 5-up. Okay,
Yeah.
so they'd be on a 4. So when you don't have that good armor, the crypt horrors are getting a lot of those damage 2 and damage 3 attacks through. And any damage they're taking, like disease, will do nothing to the crypt horrors. It doesn't, they can be fully stacked disease for the entire game, and it will never, it's never going to reduce their output because they're resurrecting far more than they're losing. And then again, like one of the nice things for Flesh Eater Courts at the moment is they've got loads of Galician champions, and they bring those. They would be bringing those anyway, so it's just nice that that sort of fits, obviously, with the meta right now. So yeah, I'll volunteer myself as what I would be looking to put this into is into other low damage lists. I think actually this would probably be good against even lists like the zombie spam Soulblight lists. Again, like you put out a lot of damage into the fact they have no saves, and you're not really worried about taking attrition damage back. So basically picking on other low damage lists. Do
you think this would be good in something like Bok as well?
Oof. If you can weather that first, you've only got the 10 crypt ghouls as a screen is the thing you're sort of worried about, and you don't have, again, if you have the 9 flayers, you can use the screams to remove a lot of stuff. I'd probably be worried about one block of crypt horrors getting hit by the Bulgors. They probably have enough damage to lift it all at once, and then like your other block gets Bellacord or your Terrorgeist gets Bellacord, so that's kind of scary. But against all the Ungor Raiders, there you're maybe in a better spot to just keep regenning. You summon Flayers, the Terrorgeist screams off, small units. Also against, the very MSU Ungor Raider lists, you can do stuff like have your Vargulf just go fight a block of Ungor Raiders, kill one block, even, the small heroes can still kill those blocks. So by having a sort of the MSU, you can start dealing with it that way. But that list is also just very scary.
Does this list have enough summoning to null deploy Bok army?
I think you probably could try it, right? You could summon 20 ghouls from the Archregent, 10 ghouls from the Ghoul King, and 3 flayers from the Terrorgeist. And then you can sort of zoom, the crypt horrors into a line somewhere, and you can block off. I don't think you can stop them from coming onto the board, but you can probably get a big zone of control where you've got your like Terrorgeist. Anything that doesn't want to get shot or charged is in the middle, and the edges are safe for now. Obviously, Bok have a lot of shenanigans. So
I think this lists Bok quite easily.
If the stuff has come down, if you sort of survive the alpha, I think the FEC will clean them up.
Yeah, I think so. The 9 man does what? Okay, so worst case scenario, they lift 9 crypt horrors.
Yeah.
You still got the Terrorgeist, the other 9 to lift the 9, right?
That's true. Both of those units will lift. Again, they don't have good saves, so crypt horrors will go through them. Yeah.
Bellacore can only hit one of those.
Yeah.
The other one will go in with the other 3 flayers that you've summoned as well. I think.
Yeah. And the screams.
I think it's great into Bok. Yeah, I think it's great.
We just got James Dean in the chat saying I take psychic damage every time I see a KO list. I think we all do.
Right. You don't even have to see it. Just thinking about it. Just you bringing it up. Alrighty, yeah. So I'll move on from the Flesh Eater's Court meta, which I'm sure after Worlds, after all the FEC players, both the FEC players go 6-0. We'll see much more of them.
Oh, Darren Watson's in the chat as well, eh?
Yeah. Shout out to Darren. Also, now we get into maybe the most, stats-wise, the most Metabreakers there is, which is Czech Republic's Cruel Boys list. So I think there are 2 Cruel Boys lists, both, reasonably similar, although the other one I think has more Bolt Boys. But yeah, Nathan, I know you're a big Cruel Boys aficionado, so why don't you talk to us about Cruel Boys, what you think of the list and what you think of the, Cruel Boys in the World's meta?
Yeah, it's a pretty cool list. It's not got the Vulture, but other than that, it's quite similar to the list that I know you had on your team, Luke, from Orkman, right? The Grin and Blades, yeah, Pierre. It can do an insane amount of damage if you let it, and Gut Rippers easily get underestimated as well.
Yeah.
So it's just a castle army, and if you sleep on it, it can just take you off. It doesn't have as many bolt boys. It's only got 2 units of 6, but it's got 2 sludge rakers, the named one and the non-named one.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it can cross the board quite quick with that fast down and sneaky miasma spell. So you can triple move one of them and just get it in, and they absolutely slap. They'll do a lot of damage.
Yeah, the sludge rakers really do.
Yeah.
And the Gut Rippers got buffed again, didn't they?
-1
Got,
to hit now
Yeah.
against anything that's not a hero or a monster in combat. So yeah, no, they're pretty good. And then you've got the whole can't be shot if you're more than 12 inches, or can't be magic if more than 12 inches away.
Which is good. Which is good because you can
I think
obviously
it's pretty
screen.
good to KO. It's quite a good pick to have. So you could attack this with Bok or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a bit of a problem. I'm not sure if it actually beats KO because I've not played that matchup, but it looks like it could with the Grinning Blades.
Yeah, it's also an army that if you have one turn where you roll all the 5s and 6s, you can kill just about anything that there is. You know, obviously you'll have turns where you don't roll any 5s and 6s. That's probably why Cruel Boys are, not doing so well. They're not consistent, right? But like, in the game where you're like, oh yeah, I charged my Sledge Raker in, I did D3 plus 4 mortal wounds, with all the attacks, and then the Bolt Boys are also doing 3 mortal wounds on every 6 and all that. Like, it can pop off. And again, when you're talking about what do I include in as my sort of 7th or 8th pick, 6, 7, 8 pick, then being like, okay, it's not consistent, but when it does, it can beat anything in the game. If it high rolls, that can be a good thing to have in your...
I was trying a 1-drop Big Yellow's list with 9 Bolt Boys and a 1-banged Ironclad, and then got the charge off with the 30 Gut Rippers turn 1.
And that's
It's just over.
You just send your opponent the handshake emoji and call it a day there.
Nice.
So yeah, that's exactly it. And again, like when you're talking about what list you're going to include, if you're like, yeah, we have a 10% chance to 20-0 KO, if that comes off even one time over the World's weekend, like you're like, great, you're getting points where you can, and then you have one where you swap a 20-0 list for your opponent for a 20-0 for you. That's a 40-point swing. That's that'll probably win you the round just by itself if that comes off. So yeah, Nathan, if you were trying to get Cruel Boys into anything, you got to pick what you were putting Cruel Boys into, what would it be?
I really don't know. They don't like playing against Lumineth. Lumineth can take them off inside of a turn. But yeah, I felt like they had game against everything that wasn't AoE mortal wounds when I was playing them.
All right.
Yeah, it's been a while. So yeah, I don't know.
We'll say KO because you smashed them.
Yeah.
We'll say 100% win rate versus KO. Yeah, and as Luke said, Grinning Blades can't be targeted out of 12. They got some shenanigans. Pavel's probably got some tricks up his sleeve. I believe in him. Hopefully he plays some KO and smashes them, and we can say that we called it.
Interestingly, I don't know if you've got it on your list, but the Ogre Iron Blaster list, we took almost the same list to Brotherhood.
Oh yeah,
Hughes took it.
Yeah.
It kind of just fell off, didn't it? As soon as they put the points up on the Iron Blasters, you just never saw that list. And it's interesting how they've
Relation champions as well.
Yeah. It's I think one of the things that sometimes happens, we've seen it multiple times basically, is like a new army comes out at sort of the wrong time where it's more powerful than a bunch of its peers, and it gets nerfed really quickly, but at the same time people learn to play against it, and other stuff gets released, and the meta changes a bit, and all those at once just sort of make it disappear. I think right now you've got like OBR is, kicking ass and taking names, and so's Soul Blight, but if you're not the best army in the game, like KO, or Gits, or whatever you want to argue with, you can sort of get away with being overpowered for a little bit more, it's sort of the tallest poppy sort of syndrome. So, yeah, I think that's, it's interesting, but obviously, as you say, it was one of the scariest lists in the game, maybe the scariest list when it first came out, the Iron Blaster list, and again, it's still, it's maybe not a top 1 army, but there's a very good chance it's a top 8 army, and we see that blasting some people off. Continuing in the destruction theme, we've next up got Iron Jaws. from Team France. So this Iron Jaw's always a weird one. In my mind, I never think of them as a top tier army. Even after they've got all their buffs and they've always like once they got their new books and stuff, they started doing a lot better in singles. But I feel like I can't remember them ever going through a period of winning loads of events or anything like that. You know, it is sort of this pigs list is the scary list, you know, the Maw Crusher and all the pigs. So Nathan, I know you've got some Iron Jaws, some destruction experience. Why don't you talk to us about the pigs?
Yeah, if you've not played against it a lot, it can be a real headache with the charging at the end of the combat phase that the Bloodtooths do. And then the command trait, Mega Bossy, you can do a couple of the Mighty Destroyers inside the one turn.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's got a lot of out-of-sequence mobility, and it can do quite a lot of damage into stuff that has like reasonable saves and low wounds.
Uh-huh.
I think it kind of gets outpaced by your wounds or high armor.
Okay.
But yeah, Gore Grunters, they do pretty decent damage, fast. Yeah.
Well, you've got the Mega Boss trick there.
Yeah, the Tunnel Master Destroyer. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That thing can get you, and it's doing 5 damage each and Ren too when you call the wild.
When they call the wild.
It's nothing to.
Nothing turn your nose up at.
It's
Yeah.
nothing to look at, that's for sure.
It's a good way to get that battle tactic, the GC, the GC.
So you're getting hit by a big lad, a little lad, and then loads of little piggies.
Yeah.
It's like it's scary.
It's scary. It's I think KO has always sort of bullied Iron Jaws is one of the things. I know part of it used to be because of the Navigator. But yeah, I assume Fabian, you'd be happy if you were playing KO to shoot off some Iron Jaws.
Yeah, who doesn't like eating some little piggies, eh?
Pegasus.
It's steak time.
Yeah.
If the chat's not aware, so the Mega Boss with the Tunnel Master, it got FAQ'd, so you can Tunnel Master in the hero phase essentially, and then you can move in the movement phase and then charge. So it can get around some screens and stuff as well. So it's
got some
it's a
trick.
nice trick, yeah.
And it is a lot of
Which it
damage.
never had last year. You did see it last year. I do think it's a better army than it was last year, but the problem is I think the meta's still
Outpaced
too far ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Gits as well. I assume if you're Nathan, that if you were facing this with like if you're just a normal, like if you're an army that just does combat into something like Gits, it feels like you're just gonna lose. Probably.
Yeah, it would just table itself inside its own turn against Git.
Yeah, with the fight on death.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I did watch Peter beat Stuart on Gits with the Orcs. And
Yeah, it was
good to see
Big Wado.
Yeah, but it's still essentially the same army. It's just Big War has the Wergog, but
Yeah, and Peter's been playing green
And
stuff.
he also had a big unit of squig herds in it as well, right? Like...
Good.
I think he beat him when he was playing 20 Fanatics as well. Look. So.
Yeah. All right, Nathan, you get the fun question of what you get to pick the matchup for your Iron Jaws. What are you putting it into?
Do you know, it probably does okay into something like that Nurgle, I think. 5 up, say 5 upward with the amount of damage that the pigs can do. The Mega Boss trick can get the sloppy without having to pile in. Stuff like that. I think it just gets outpaced by a lot of the top lists. There's a lot of Zinch there.
Yeah.
And I know that from our own practice and our own data, Zinch just always beats it.
What about
I
Bach?
don't know.
What about Bach? Similar sort of thing as what Fabian was saying, is just that any of these, any of the units of pigs or the heroes, even the foot heroes, right? They can all kill Bach stuff. Can this? You reckon this can just sort of run around, smash up Bach?
Depends how much they take off in the turn, right?
Yeah.
Because if they take off enough of it and then they just take the corners, depends on the mission, maybe. Don't know. I think Bach
it's far
could beat it.
enough to get to the middle of the board, isn't it, to avoid the range
Yeah.
shooting?
Yeah.
Maybe zombies. I feel like this would be good into zombies as well. You just pump out damage. You don't have infantry to give them reses. Alrighty.
Yeah. Fair
Next up, we've got one of the handful of the Deepkin lists. Here we go.
Oh, I've
Patrick's-
not seen one of those for ages.
I know, it's been a
Oh.
while since, they let Deepkin abusers like Luke off the chain. So Luke, why don't you take us through
Hey,
this?
I'm a Metabreaker. I always use the weakest army. to
Yeah.
win tournaments.
Don't make me cut your mic off again.
Just
So-
talk me through that floating trick with those eels again, Luke. Over terrain. Sorry.
What can I say? Set a trend.
Luke, why don't you run us through the Deepkin list as a resident ex-Deepkin player?
So yeah, we have Team Germany. Tobias here. Sadly, that Deepkin's going 0-6. There's some, there's some tricks here, isn't there? The grand strategy is not easy to deny. They have got some battle tactics that they can do. The army essentially it still has the ability, if it holds on till turn 2 and then wins the roll off, it basically plays 3 turns before you get to play a turn.
Yeah.
If you're bottom of 2, you win the roll off, going to 3, you have your turn again, and then they have their turn 3. They can't really engage you because all your army's fighting them twice.
Uh-huh.
So, what I mean by fighting you twice is they just got always strikes first. There's very few armies now that can counter that. So it can just play that game of I'll sit back and then full send turn 2, hope to win the roll off, and it pretty much would table most people's armies. The C is a nice little piece to have. Can reduce the armor save, so you increases your damage even more, makes it more reliable. Only for combat attacks. The C is actually quite a good caster as well with rerolls.
Yeah.
Not very many self reroll casting pieces now without cogs. I think he probably is the only one now. And then Soul Scryer gives you a bit of play.
Bit of deep strike energy.
Bit of play there with the old Tonomaster and the heal and having taken some things off the board. And then the king still just does the king thing. If people are not aware, the Achillean king, if you castle, can one-shot your whole army. It can get a lot of attacks and it can do a lot of damage. And at any point, it can go very, very fast and charge you. So yeah. It's just the issue is it's a very elite army that can die very, very fast.
Yeah, small and fragile, which is no fun. Fabian, as our resident shooting expert today, what are your thoughts about playing? KO is obviously very mobile and can deal with the sort of forgotten nightmares. You can't shoot, only can shoot the closest unit thing. But I don't know if you played versus much Deepkin or anything. But what are your thoughts? Going shooting into Deepkin now, because it used to be like a hard counter. But it doesn't really feel like that anymore.
Yeah, it can be. It can be like shooting the closest thing, and then they also have turn 1 where it's similar to the Cruel Boys as well, right? Where you can't shoot within a certain distance as well, right? Luke's nodding his head, so yeah, I think he knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they can. Yeah. So but you have to get within 12 to shoot them. Yeah, and you got the Aether Wings there that still works even now. They never changed it, so you can still just make people shoot Aether Wings. So it is quite good to shoot in.
Yeah, I think you need to. Sorry, Luke. I think you need to be careful, the first couple of turns. Yeah. This is a particularly good one because of the Reavers, the Whisper Bows and stuff, right? Are really, really good. I played against Dan Arnold, who was using, I think he was using 60 of these bad boys in the Masters, and he just took me off. He killed Incarnate on I charged in on turn 1, he dropped it a level, then his turn 1 he killed it. He dropped it again with the Whisper Bows, and then everything I killed just grew back because he had all the guys growing back. So I've seen the power of the shooting on this is really, 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 really good. So this is not to be underestimated. Especially because turn 1, you got to be within 12, so similar to the Cruel Boys. Yeah. But they can, they're a lot longer range to get you a lot more shots.
They can run and shoot, right?
Yeah, off the table with the Soul Scryer.
Oh yeah,
yeah, exactly.
You can deep strike them, yeah.
Deep strike them.
And then when you go in, a lot of shooting armies are quite, when you go in, they don't really do much to you. So eventually when you do get something there, you kind of like get into the meat and stuff. And these guys, like, okay, you took 20 Reavers off. Now my king's gonna go in and just take your unit off. Like,
and the 6
so,
eels, right?
yeah, this is yeah, and the eels are no joke, right? So, yeah, I think this is one to watch because this has got some play. This is like, I'm gonna shoot you with Reavers, similar to Slanesh. I'm gonna shoot you, and then when you do come in, I'm gonna counterpunch you. So it's got a little bit of everything, which is quite nice. And I didn't see that with the sea as well, so it's even got play with magic. So this is a real good list, really good list.
I'm interested to see how it does. Again, it's a list I think that will the Deepkin players will capitalize on people not having played versus a lot of Deepkin. And again, as we always talk about on this show, if you're a KO player and you have just picked up KO for Worlds because someone on your team needs to play it, it's the best list in the game, or one of the best, and you somehow end up playing versus Deepkin because you're like, oh, Deepkin, it's not a very strong army, and you've got a very well-practiced Deepkin player against a reasonably new KO player, that I think they can go south for the KO very rapidly.
Yeah.
And again, if you're getting 18, 19, 20 points off KO in a round, you're probably winning the round off that. So I assume, yeah.
I think the issue is, and Nathan played the Deepkin when I played it as well, is that the army did a lot of damage, but it was very reliable damage. It had lots of rerolls. Now it does like a lot of damage, but it's just there's no rerolls now to save you. So it's like small amount of attacks that do a lot of damage, but
if you miss them,
you win, then it's over for you because you're not going to recover. You haven't really got the armor to recover.
No, you're not tanky enough at all. No, that is true. I guess in terms of what we want to get into, I assume you're trying to get it into shooting, right? That's sort of your best case. You're trying to get into those shooting lists and be a real big headache for them. Alrighty. Next up, we have another list that sort of appears more often than I would have expected, maybe. This is the Archaon list. So this is Team Greece's version, which is Archaon, Sorcerer Lord, the 30 Splintered Fang, 30 Splintered Fang, Untamed Beast, and the Unmade. And that's in a 1-drop. So it's basically Archaon in a 1-drop and Splintered Fang, who do mortal wounds on 6s and have some regen and stuff like that. So this can also be a headache list. Luke, I'm going to assume that you know the most about Slaves to Darkness. If you want to tell us a little bit about this list, how it fits into the meta right now.
So there was a similar list. I think Australia took this similar list to this with a Splinter Fang and Archaon.
There are a couple of them, yeah.
It's a nice combo you can do with Archaon. So if you can't raw Archaon and get rid of his command ability, those Splinter Fang probably do probably the most damage in combat that you could possibly do with Fight on Death. Maybe even more than the Herd. But 30 guys is like 91 attacks and 6s do mortals to hit, and then if you kill them all, they do that again.
Yeah.
Fight on Death. And then Ravengers, you bring in units on the board. I mean, even just bringing 10 Splinter Fang on the board that charge you, it's a lot. It's still 30 attacks.
Yeah.
You can fight on Death. I see this being a massive pain for a lot of teams.
Yeah, that's definitely.
It's definitely one I can see going 6-0. For sure. And it's in a good team as well. Greece are a new team that have come to Worlds, but the players are actually quite well known in the UK. They do come over and play in the UK throughout the year. So I can see them doing very well, and that is a good list.
Yeah, no, agreed. Nathan, what are your thoughts on this? I know we tried a little bit of Archaon experiments.
Yeah, it's very awkward, isn't it? Like, you've got the no rally or inspiring aura from Archaon now. He's had a wounds buff as well. He's a lot stickier than he was before. Well, maybe not when he was in Zinch at the start of AoS 3. He's still pretty tough to take down. There's quite a bit of variance between the lists that have the Archaon and the Splintered Fang at Worlds. Like, for example, this one's Slanesh, which I think gives them run and charge, right? And some of them are Khorne, which gives them more attack,
+1 attack,
on the charge, So, but the output can be quite silly from the Splintered Fang.
Would you want to play this army, the Your Gits?
It would really depend on the mission. I don't like the idea of the Archeon command ability on the Splintered Fang. But at the same time, both their units come back.
Yeah.
And mines have a bit more wounds than him. So
And a bit more.
it'd be a case of who shot first. Like I think that I could quite easily take it off. Or it could quite easily be an awkward game.
Yeah. I would
He's resin just as well as you as well. So his stuff comes back.
But
Yeah.
sort of lower quality units that are coming back. But I think it can, again, if we're talking about stuff that can give the top lists a game that is not a top list itself, I definitely think this is one. I know we were talking about, if you're playing, Archeon still has a spell ignore, right? So Lumineth and Tzeentch, loads of teams have brought Lumineth and Tzeentch. And in a way, those lists can be good at controlling the big heroes, but they probably don't like playing versus Archeon, especially techless. He can end up just going into the sword, which would be great. I would cheer for that more or less, regardless of whose techless it was. And I don't know about KO. I don't know how, Fabian, what do you think about, how would you feel about dealing with both Archeon, Archeon and loads of bodies? That's sort of what makes this list scary when I look at it. So what would your thoughts if you were facing this on KO?
Well, I think this list particularly doesn't like shooting. I think, if my honest thoughts, I don't think it likes shooting. And then the age-old adaptation of ignore the big old 900-point beast, right? Like,
yeah, you just shoot everything else off.
Just kill everything else off and run to the hills, my friend.
And Archeon does damage, but he doesn't actually do. Again, if you're not getting put into the sword because you're a hero, he doesn't do. I don't think he even does as much damage as Marathi does. So he definitely can whiff as well. I've definitely had I've seen Archeons charge into a screen of 10 things and not kill it all, and stuff like that. So
it would be a really interesting game, I think, between this and Nathan, because Nathan might charge in and he'd be like, haha, you Splinter Fang are dead, and then they'd be like, well, I'm dead, so I'm gonna fight on death, and then Nathan would be like, well, I'm now dead, so I'm gonna fight on death. Like, this is
it'd be a 2-hour turn one.
Yeah,
perfection.
I just noticed as well, it's 1940 points. That might catch a couple of the gifts
out,
sleeping, because a few of them went a bit high.
Yeah, so no.
I definitely think it's there to be getting into the gits. Maybe not the ones that have lower triumph, but there's not many that are lower.
All right, so we're staking this as another a predator on the gits. Again, also probably one of those things where, if you haven't played versus it and you're like, what do Splinter? If you get to the table at Worlds and you're like, what do Splintered Fang do? You're going to have a very upsetting time finding out. So that hopefully.
I've just noticed they have checked the Dark Oath War Queen's artifact. I've never seen that before. Enemy models with a wounds characteristic of 1 or 2 cannot contest objectives.
Oh, that's probably again, that's
within
good versus.
Yeah.
That's probably also good
And
versus.
Combat as well.
Yeah, it's a good army into combat. I don't see any combat army really
Yeah.
is gonna give him a problem.
Alrighty. Next up is Colin's Stormcast list. This is a fun list. Fabian, I think you know a thing or two about Stormcast hijinks.
Stormcast.
Yeah, you want to let us know what you think of this list?
Well, Colin's a fantastic player as well, right?
Yeah, he's
just
a great guy too. He's beaten me
great
twice.
personality and a great guy, on the AoS scene. So, anything he kind of plays, I think you kind of need to be like take kind of a little bit of a notice of. Like obviously he's done a bit of a chariot spam, but I don't know if anyone in the chat has actually seen this war scroll before.
Oh, I've never seen the model.
I played with 3. That was as brave as I got.
Because when I saw the list, I was like, wait, what does this do?
Alexa, what is a Stormstrike Chariot?
But those things slap, right? Like 12 runes, 3 up save, like they're doing mauls when they go in. Has he given them bows, or has he given them? I'm not sure if he's got the bows or the spear. I can't really
He's
see
not
it. But...
said,
Not
so it's
said.
illegal.
He decides before each game, I believe.
Well, yeah. See, Colin, I was telling you about Colin before. Yeah. So, charges in. You're -1 a hit when it charges in. Does loads of exploding when they die as well. So, yeah, they're pretty good. They're pretty good like going in. And he also got 3 Vexler banners as well. So
yeah.
they're doing load of splash mortals. I tell you what doesn't like playing this is KO. How about that?
Really?
That doesn't
Okay.
like playing this. I've played against Vexler banners against Luke. I'm not going to talk about that game because it still haunts my nightmares now. We'll talk about 3 Stonehorns going into 2 Vexler banners and couldn't kill any of them, but we're not talking about that. But yeah, this is splashing mortals all. Sorry, has he got 4 Vexler banners?
4.
Yeah.
Oh, he's got 4. Yeah.
I thought he had 3.
It's one of them
Yeah,
has
he's
the
got 4.
artifact, which really yeah. Okay, nice.
Yeah. So he's
Also those mortals on the chart.
doing mortals.
For days.
Yeah, he's doing mortals all over the place. From range, he's got the the chariots that are going in. I think this is really good. Like again, I think it's actually like mentioned or somewhere before. I've heard someone say that this is decent into KO. I thought he had the big old boy with Galmaraz as well. I thought he had that.
the
but
prime, yeah.
So, yeah, the prime. But yeah, this is doing like 4d3 mortals. It's like killing all of like KO's characters. The Storm Strike boys, very, very going to be quite hard to kill.
Yeah.
Like, what do you kill? Like,
Yeah.
you're going to divert loads of resources into killing a 12 wound model with a 3-up save. That's just one of them, and he's got what, like 6? So, like,
yeah, it's also.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks right now. I'm just like, oh my god, Vexler, Vexler, no.
You like as soon as if you're the one thing I hate about if you're playing shooting is that if you have to split if there isn't some big juicy target to shoot at, you got to start thinking about splitting your shots efficiently. Like, if you're like, I just need to kill all 60 splintered fang and then I'm good to go.
Yeah.
You can just you just pump all your shots into them until they're gone. If you overkill them, you overkill them, but that's sort of okay. With this, you're like, how there's a chance you just leave 2 Stormstrike chariots on 1 wound each. And you're like, well, I might as well have passed my shooting phase, And again, as with a good Metabreakers list, you're not going to know, like, this is very hard to figure. If you haven't actually played the matchup on the table, which you probably haven't because, there's only one team and there's only one version of this list, you're going to be trying to figure out how to deal with these sort of 6 tanky, zoomy Stormstrike chariots while getting shot with the mortal wounds. You're going to be trying to learn that on the fly, and Colin, as you say, he's an experienced player. He's a great player. He's going to be doing his best to run rings around you with this list. And I think Fabian's already answered our next question of if we had to get something into, if you wanted to get it into something. It's, again, looks like people have been thinking about what's good against KO. And, the other list, what's good against kids. Stuff that...
It's just a good army on the small deployments like Path to the Champion or Realmstone Cache, where you're just stuck in a
little box,
and then it's hitting you with everything and trying to do big charges and stuff. So,
and it is still a 2-drop, even with all this stuff. It's not a 1-drop, but a lot of times a 2-drop is the same as a 1-drop, except you've lost the roll off. So
yeah. Have you seen a little trick with his general as well?
No, wait, what's that?
See if you can work it out.
He's the Knight Relictor. It's the only way it fits.
Oh, wait.
Knight Relictor, not Lord Relictor.
Is that what Sinky did that one time?
He did it by accident because he put the model that he had the last time he went to Worlds.
He's going to teleport a Vex banner to charge in and do more mortals on the charge.
Yeah, or teleport himself because he's got Stubborn as a Rhinox, right?
Stubborn as a Rhinox, yeah. He's got Call for Aid and he's Stormkeep. So if he starts teleporting the Vexlers around, he can start bringing a unit back or something onto an objective, count as 15. So I think if he's got Stubborn as a Rhinox and then 3 units of Redeemers, it's going to be pretty hard to take objectives off of them early doors as well.
Yeah, I mean, Stormcast are just hard to kill, aren't they?
Max has got a good thing in the chat. Won't need to play this list if the player is told by the police.
Yeah.
Although this isn't
It's
Ireland.
a different Ireland,
They are a bit more sensible, Max. Sadly, you might have to play this list.
Sadly, this list is entirely without prior convictions. So,
He's
But-
just not noted what weapons he's got in his chariot.
Alrighty, well, moving on from that geographical debacle, we've got our last list on the list, as it were. And we've got Team USA Gavin's Seraphon. Again, an interesting one, because Seraphon, last Worlds, was it Worlds or was it Six Nations, where Seraphon really, the Salamander list, they were really running the show. I think last Worlds, right? And now they've basically disappeared. Again, we see the Night Vexilords, so it does sort of seem a bit of a take on Horrorghast as well on the AoE Mortal Wound Bomb. But Luke, why don't you talk to us about this as a previous Seraphon abuser?
That's not me. That's Fabian.
Abuser.
Yeah,
Look at him.
Fabian turned it into a sort of art form. It was great watching him play, but what you did was
I used Seraphon when they were weak. Fabian used them when they were strong.
Seraphon were weak because you used them, Luke.
Shocking. Max, get him told. He's one of your teammates. Max, tell him. He's wearing your shirt. Get him told.
All right, Luke, tell us about this Seraphon list as we forget the war crimes of the past.
So, I think it's just a bit of an ego list. A lot of the USA lists are a bit like, oh, I'm gonna use what I like. So I'm not sure. I don't think it'll do well, but I'd like to see it. I'd like to see me be proven wrong. It's just literally, essentially, almost the same list as it was last year, but it's just lost a lot now. It's not the meta. I just think the meta's moved on from this kind of thing. The Horrorghast bomb with Croak is a known thing that everybody knows what it does. It can make a lot of armies run away, but in a team format, you can kind of avoid that.
Croak's not even here, right? It's just a normal slam.
No, not Croak. He's doing the same thing with the Vex banners, so
Sure.
Before it was Croak and Horrorghast, but
now it's
with Vex banners just because Croak's too expensive.
Yeah, and only 2 Vexes, right? As opposed to the 3 or 4 Vexes is normally what we see from the Vexilord lists.
But he could just, get lucky, pump the engine twice, get models from that twice. Vex banners pop off, Horrorghast is in place, Bastillodon, split fire everything. And then make your army run away. But it's not. The problem is there's so many armies now that just don't really care about bravery. So the Horrorghast is less good now. I think Khorne players probably find that with the Icon is that Icon is the same as Horrorghast, but it's less effective. But yeah, I think maybe if you pair it into something that's what it's built to do.
Yeah.
But the issue is the team isn't ready for that. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how it gets on because I just don't see the power in this meta right now.
Yeah. It looked. I mean, I think I'm in a similar place. I sort of look at it and I feel like it doesn't quite have enough of a Mortal Wound Bomb. When compared to stuff like, for me, I think Colin's version of the Mortal Wound Bomb with all the MSU chariots looks like more of a headache. But I mean, Seraphon still does Seraphon things, as you say. You're rolling on the engine of the gods. You've got the Bastillodons. They do extra damage to demons. There's loads of Slaneshan Zinch running about. So, pumping out AoE mortal wounds with the Horrorghast is, something that has been scary and will still be scary if you fail a bunch of battle shock tests. I know Lumineth can struggle. If you end up battle shocking loads of Lumineth bits and bobs off, that can be sweaty. Hi Phil, Marshall. Sorry you joined late. Only for the last list.
Phil, and he's just missed it.
You've missed all the secrets. All the secrets we've given away. But yeah, I don't know, Nathan or Fabian, if you've got anything to talk about for the Seraphon list. Nathan, I know you played a little bit of Seraphon Mortal Wound Bomb.
Did I?
I think you tried it on TTS, the one with the dragons and a slan.
Yeah, I took a slan and Stormcast. I like it. The Night Vexilor is just a kind of one and done, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I suppose for that one turn that you're talking about, where it blows up a piece of scenery as well as the Vexilors and the engine. I don't really see it though. I think Luke kind of nailed it when he said about the American lists did seem like they were just taking their own thing. I noticed it with a couple of them. I think this is just another one of those. Shots fired.
Shots fired. Hopefully we don't have to face them, or we do, and then we 8-0 them. And
Ireland's going to beat them.
Ireland is it USA versus which Ireland?
USA versus Ireland, the real one, not the fake colony one.
The one that are going to be held by the police that USA didn't have.
They won't be arrested yet. They won't be arrested yet. Day one.
The police can't save you round one.
They will have all have done 48 hours in jail after when they arrived.
Poor Colin is just going to get arrested for no reason.
They've received an anonymous tip. Right, so that is our that's our list for the sort of top 10 off meta lists. I don't know if there was any other list that you guys particularly wanted to cover. I know we briefly touched on the Iron Blasters. Anything from anyone about a list you want to look at?
Maybe Phil Marshall's list is a bit off meta. He's not very good player. He's been
going 0-6 is not really.
The tea, like... he just copied someone else's list. Copied Luke. He's just copied Luke's list. You know what I mean? Like,
I sort of wanted to keep it to off meta lists that might win games. You know, not just.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we should. Phil's brother's better player. You know what I mean? He's just a really.
We can put Nathan on the spot, right? And just say top 3 and that kind of things, because it's going to be the last show now, isn't it?
Yeah, before actual Worlds. All right, Nathan, top 3 Metabreakers lists, or factions. Just pick factions. You don't have to scroll through the list. Top 3 Metabreakers factions for how well they're going to do at Worlds. What do you think?
I think Night Hunt.
Oh, okay.
Oh, not Night Hunt, sorry.
All right, he's taking it back.
Daughters of Cain.
Okay.
I was looking at Night Hunt list there when I said it. So Daughters of Cain, Nurgle, and I think that the Deepkin list might actually catch people out.
All right. So you hear first. Doc has a lot of lifetime players, right? I know Peter's playing it, isn't he, for Team Poland, and he's bound to. He's been taking names with Doc for about as long as they've been around. So, all right, you heard it here first, anyway. So, anyways, I think, as always with Metabreakers, it's good to remember that when you take one of these sort of off-meta lists, you got a big advantage for catching people off guard. You take people like Fabian, who are just KO abusers. You know, they've just rocked up the tournament. They've played 0 practice games. You know, they're just like, oh, I just shoot and I win. And then you teach them, you know, a couple tricks about a faction they haven't played against before. But yeah, that is going to be us from the Road to Worlds. Next time you hear from us, we will be back from the World Championships with me and Nathan. Will both have Scotland, you know, the trophies for winning the whole thing. So we can talk about our secret Metabreaker tactics after that. But otherwise, that's a good.
Wait, are you guys there? Are you
cut you off there? We'll edit that out in post. It's a bye from me. It's a goodbye from Luke and Fabian.
Thanks to all our patrons, and like and subscribe.
Yeah. Thank you, Nathan, for coming on.
Anytime.
And
bye.
yeah, make sure to like and subscribe, and thanks a lot to our Patreons, because without this, we couldn't just come on here and just talk shit for an hour or whatever it is we've been doing. But yeah, thanks everyone. Have an excellent night.
This video is made possible by our patrons. If you want to know more about how to support us, click on the link to the right.